Jai. So thank you so much once again. It's always a pleasure to be with all of the devotees every Ekadashi. Best way to start our day full of spiritual recharge. So it's always definitely a pleasure to be with all of you. Of course, we can't begin without our Mangala Charana. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Shtapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. So we did a little bit of the glories of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu last Ekadashi, and we'll be continuing with the glorious pastimes of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu for this Ekadashi. And I kind of wanted to focus on what the climate was during Mahaprabhu's advent. So just before, which is kind of the time that we're in right now, a few days before the advent of Mahaprabhu. And then, if there's time, we'll see if we can bring our focus on our meditation to the beautiful daily pastimes of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. In fact, I'll do that first, since there's a wonderful benediction. So these prayers are by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, and we've done a session on Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. And we could do many sessions just on his writings and the amazing gifts, the literary gifts that he's given all of us as devotees. But one such gift is the nectarian pastimes of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So this is the Sriman Mahaprabhu Ashtakalaya Lila Smarana Mangala Stotram. Auspicious prayers for remembering the eightfold daily pastimes of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And after reading these prayers for several days, I found myself thinking during the day, I wonder what Mahaprabhu is up to. And then trying to remember those wonderful pastimes to actually really get in mind what Mahaprabhu is up to. So now we can even kind of see what Mahaprabhu is up to now, being that it's 7:10 a.m. around there on the East Coast in New York. And okay, so technically maybe 6 a.m. because I don't know if they weren't doing all the daylight savings. They didn't have to save daylight when Mahaprabhu was there. So around 6 a.m. Let's see. So the glories of the Lord's daily pastimes. Devotional service to the lotus feet of Sri Gauranga Mahaprabhu is far beyond the perception of Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, Lord Sheshnag, and the rest, but it is continually indulged in by the Lord's own devotees, and is always available to other souls as well. Now I will begin my description of the process of Manasi Seva, service to the Lord, executed within the mind. This process is celebrated as continuous remembrance by the most virtuous sages. Therefore, I offer my most respectful obeisances to the eternal daily life and pastimes of the Lord, born in Navadweep. So I really like these prayers because it brings to the forefront this Manasa Seva or Manasi Seva, which is seva that we all can do, no matter where we find ourselves or what condition of life we find ourselves. This is service within the mind, which has been celebrated by sages throughout time. So it is said that even there was a Brahmin, and every day he would offer beautiful sweet rice to his deities within the mind. And one day he decided to test it out with his finger, not wanting it to be too hot when he offered it to his deities. And when he tested it with his finger was hot and it got burned, and he came out of his meditation. Oh my, what have I done? And he looked at his hand, and his hand was burnt. And this is our wonderful, wonderful reminder that service in the mind counts. In Kali Yuga, we have a bit of a caveat. We have a little bit of a easing, right? We have a little bit of a shortcut. And we are not punished for sins committed within the mind. We're not, once it comes out of your mouth, then you're on your own. But when it's in the mind, we're not taken to task so heavily because of that. Usually it's about our actions and our words. But on the other hand, Krishna is so merciful that he fully accepts all seva done within the mind, with words, with body. He'll accept it any way it happens. So he'll excuse offenses committed within the mind, but he'll accept all of the seva and more, even done within the mind. So now we can embark on some really wonderful manasa seva. At the end of night, before sunrise, Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gets up from his bed, washes his face, and converses with his wife. In the morning, he is massaged with oil and bathes in the celestial Ganga river, and then worships Lord Vishnu. In the forenoon period, he enjoys discussing topics about Lord Krishna with his devotees during visits to their homes. At midday, he enjoys pastimes in the gardens on the bank of the Ganga. In the afternoon, he wanders about the town of Navadweep, sporting with all the residents. At dusk, he returns home to worship Lord Vishnu and be with his family. In the evening, he goes with his devotees to the courtyard of Shivas Pandit to chant the holy names and dance in ecstasy. At night, he returns home to take rest. May this Lord Gora protect us all. Period 1, 3:36 a.m. to 6 a.m. Pastimes at the end of night. At the end of the night, upon hearing the pleasant sounds made by many birds, such as cuckoos, roosters, and others, Sri Gora arises from his bed. With his wife, Sri Vishnupriya, he discusses many topics concerning the transcendental mellows of their mutual loving affairs, and thus they become very pleased. Then he gets up and goes to another room, wherein he sits upon a raised sitting place and is assisted by his devotees in washing his lotus face with nicely scented water. Thereafter, he very happily visits his mother, Sri Shashi Devi, as well as other friends and relatives in the home. I meditate thus on the daily pastimes of Sri Gora. One beautiful benediction is that we don't normally hear of the Lord conversing with Vishnupriya. Now we get a glimpse into, it wasn't just one day he married her, and the next day took sannyas, and then that was it, he was gone. Here we actually have a glimpse of what the memories were that were able to keep her going during the years after when he did take sannyas. So we hear that they had wonderful, loving conversations, which I kind of think it's really sweet. First thing he does, he wakes up, talks to his wife. Then he goes to see his mother. So period 2, 6 a.m. to 8:24 a.m. That would be now. In the morning, after sunrise, the Lord goes with his associates to bathe in the holy river. While bathing, they also worship Mother Ganga by offering flowers, incense, and other presentations. They then come on to the bank of the river, where he is dressed with exquisite cloth and decorated with fresh flower garlands, sandalwood paste, and other ornaments, returning to his home in order to perform opulent worship of Lord Vishnu, as well as other rituals. They later partake of the foodstuffs that were offered to Lord Vishnu. After washing his hands and mouth, Lord Gora goes into another room and then rests very happily for a while. I meditate thus on the daily pastimes of Sri Gora. So, right about now, our Lord is woken up. He's now getting ready to take a bath, do nice opulent worship of Lord Vishnu, meet up with all their associates who I'm sure are so eager to meet with the Lord, thinking that this night, the distance of a night between them is too much to bear. Period 3, 8:24 to 10:48 a.m. Upon the arrival of the forenoon period, the Lord gets up from his nap and stretches his body. So he wakes up, converses with his wife, takes a bath, it's lots of wonderful puja, and then he goes and takes a nap. Naps are bona fide. So he wakes up from his nap and stretches his body. This is still before noon. He's gone to sleep, woken up, gone to sleep again, woken up. Then he washes his face with sweetly scented water, meeting with his devotees who are all very fond of chanting Sri Harinam Kirtan. He personally tastes and relishes the chanting of the holy names. Thus he sports, sometimes in the homes of various devotees and sometimes in his own home. In this way, he increases the ecstatic pleasure of all the townspeople, so much that it attains limitless heights. I meditate thus on the daily pastimes of Sri Gaura Chandra. Period 4, 10:48 a.m. to 3:36 p.m., midday pastimes. During the midday period, Lord Chaitanya continues to enjoy the performance of intensely enthusiastic chanting and dancing, surrounded by his own dear devotees, such as the moon-like Advaita Acharya, Gadadhar Pandit, and the divine madman, Srila Nityananda Avadut Prabhu. Afterwards, they all wander throughout the gardens and groves on the bank of the Ganga, where they enjoy the sweet cooling breezes blowing over the river. Hearing the pleasant sounds of the bumblebees and birds in those gardens, the Lord remembers his own ecstatic pastimes, as Sri Radha and Krishna, which are occurring simultaneously in his own forest of Vrindavan. I meditate thus on the daily pastimes of Sri Gora. Period 5, 3:36 p.m. to 6 p.m. During the splendidly beautiful afternoon period, the Lord and his devotees all become equally maddened in ecstatic love, and thus they expand ever-increasing waves of auspicious benefit that ripple all throughout the three worlds. In this mood, they leave the gardens and travel back toward his home. Along the way, he satisfies the eyes of all the townspeople, just as the moon satisfies the chakora bird with its moonbeams. Reaching home, the Lord is met at the door by his mother and lavished with loving affection. I thus meditate on the daily pastimes of Sri Gora. Sri Gauranga Mahaprabhu's meetings with the townspeople of Navadweep could take up so many lectures and classes all on their own. And in fact, each day, as I was kind of thinking about what to prepare this lecture on, I wound up thinking, oh, we could do this pastime. And then the next day, it's like, oh, well, what about this pastime? And the next day, it was kind of like, well, what about this pastime? And finally, I was kind of, it's like, how many pastimes can we do? Each of them can fill up so much, so many volumes of lectures. And it made me reflect on time and the passage of time and how I want to start really corralling the time into much more valuable assets and things and investments rather than all the other things that I let kind of take hold of me. Just the afternoon pastimes of Mahaprabhu could fill up days and days and days of us talking to each other. Sunset pastimes, 6 to 8:24 p.m. At dusk, the Lord bathes with his dear friends in the Ganga, the river who flows in 3 streams. They devoutly worship the Ganga by offering ghee lamps, flowers, and other articles. Afterwards, the Lord puts on fresh silken clothes and is adorned with flower garlands. Then he worships Lord Vishnu at home by performing the evening arti ceremony, offering ghee lamps and other items. Later, he and his friends partake of the foodstuffs and betel nuts that were offered to Lord Vishnu. I thus meditate on the daily pastimes of Sri Gora. Normally in the evening, we hear about Gora Arti. This is literally Gora Arti, but Gora is performing the Arti. Can we imagine? We've seen pujaris who perform a really, have you ever seen like a pujari and you're like, wow, that pujari, they do an Arti ceremony and it's beautiful and graceful and almost like dancing. Can we imagine Gauranga Mahaprabhu himself performing the Arti ceremony in the evening? What a wonderful vision. Who in the world has these wonderful visions other than beautiful saints like Bhaktivinoda Thakur and Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur? I feel like we'd be completely lost. When I look at other spiritual traditions and then I look at the vast amount of information that is specific about what God does every minute of the day, I think about how fortunate we are. We're so spiritually fortunate here. And not to even think about, well, we have more than other traditions. No, but really look at the treasure trove. We are so abundant. Never let us think that we are lacking anything ever again. If these pastimes alone are the symbol of our wealth, we're never lacking in anything ever. So evening pastimes, 8:24 to 10:48 p.m. In the evening, the Lord goes to the home of Srivas Pandit, accompanied by Srila Advaita Chandra and other dear associates. Meeting with the multitude of his devotees, he tastes and relishes the nectar of topics about Lord Hari, and his mind becomes agitated with the ecstasies of pure love of Godhead. Then, becoming very lustful to relish the congregational chanting of the holy names of the Lord, he orchestrates the performance of intensely jubilant Sankirtan, which attains the summit of passionate glorification of the Lord. I thus meditate on the daily pastimes of Sri Gaura Sundar. Usually you hear about lust in a different context. Here, you hear Mahaprabhu's incredible desire arising, bubbling up, churning from the innermost depths of his heart, now overflowing. What I like is 8:30 to 10:48. So 8:24 to 10:48, right? This is the evening. This is the nighttime. The Lord orchestrates the performance of intensely jubilant Sankirtan, which attains the summit of passionate glorification of the Lord. I kind of like that because I'm really fond of those really intensely passionate, jubilant kirtans. The ones where everybody's singing really loudly. And sometimes they're kind of fast. Sometimes, a lot of the times they're really loud. And one might think, oh, it's 8 to 10 p.m. You know, kirtan goes from like 7 to 9, 8 to 10. Don't you think that the Lord, as he's getting ready to take rest, would like to hear such a more soothing, softer kirtan? To this, I once again look to my Mahaprabhu, who has made my heart happy by orchestrating intensely jubilant Sankirtan late at night, which reaches the summit of passionate glorification, which, you know, kind of angered the townspeople at the time. So if you've been doing kirtan and you haven't made your neighbors happy, you're in the best company. And the neighbors of Srivas were already kind of upset with him for his incredible worship of Shri Krishna, right? Which for him was normal, for everybody else just seemed fanatical and obsessive and over the top. Why do you have to be so extra, you know? And they were often threatening to break his house and throw into the Ganga. And he had this wonderful banana plantation, which would kind of block the view of anyone else trying to kind of peer inside and find out about these pastimes of Lord Chaitanya, which were incredibly hidden at this time. So if our good fortune already knew no bounds, now it knows even further no bounds, because these pastimes weren't even seen by everybody. Now everybody has access to them. So if you've been thinking to yourself, about the intense kirtans that could happen between 8 and 11 p.m. This is the way it was done. This is completely bona fide. Midnight pastimes, 10:48 p.m. to 3:36 a.m. Continuing well into the night, the Lord dances and dances with Prabhu Nityananda in the courtyard of Srivas, surrounded by his most intimate devotees. His ecstatic singing is accompanied by the devotees who are expert in playing very loud rhythms on the mridanga drums. Very loud rhythms on the mridanga drums. He wanders and dances with Sri Gadadhar Prabhu in the most astonishing way throughout the night until just before dawn. Then he returns to his own home, where he retires to his bedchamber and falls asleep. I thus meditate on the daily pastimes of Sri Gaura. The benefit of reciting this prayer. Sri Gauranga, the moon over Navadweep, is manifest in his own abode during 8 periods of each and every day. His pastimes during these periods should first be remembered by meditative devotees before they visualize the simultaneously occurring pastimes of Krishna, the moon over Gokula. If someone lovingly reads or recites the Lord's eternal daily pastimes as they are illuminated in the 10 verses of this prayer, then the Lord is perpetually pleased with that person by his own merciful compassion. I thus meditate on the daily pastimes of Sri Gaura. Shri Gauranga Mahaprabhu ki jai. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur ki jai. Srila Vaishnav Thakur ki jai. And just those 10 verses filled up almost half an hour. And that was me like curbing my enthusiasm and saying, oh no, that like there's more to do. So yeah. One of our friends is saying it's interesting that Advaitacharya is compared to the moon, since Gauranga is often described as a golden moon. That's right, Advaita Chandra is often, right? Often, Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. And we hear in the exact verses of Sri Chaitanya Bhagavat, it's often Advaita Chandra. Why? Why? Why is he Advaita Chandra? That brings us to what was supposed to be originally the topic of this lecture. The mood of Navadweep and the mood of the world at the time of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's appearance. So now we turn to the pages of Sri Chaitanya Bhagavat, which tells us in great detail what the land was like, what the world was like, what the climate was. So we hear that prior to the Lord's taking birth, his eternal associates appeared before him. Anantashesh, Lord Shiva, Brahma, the sages and other associates of the Lord all took birth as highly elevated, pure Vaishnav devotees, known as Bhagavats. Lord Chaitanya, Krishna, knew everyone's position and identity. Most of them took birth in Navadweep, yet some were born in Chattagram, Radhadesh, or Srihatta, and still others born in Orissa. All these associates appeared in different places, but everyone met in Navadweep by the arrangement of the Lord. Srivas Pandit, Sri Ram Pandit, and Sri Chandrasekhar are personalities worshipped in all the 3 worlds. Sri Murari Gupta can cure the disease of material entanglement. Vaishnavas of this caliber appeared in Sri Hatta. Pundarik Vidyanidhi, the foremost Vaishnav devotee, Chaitanya Vallabh, who was very dear to Lord Chaitanya, and Vasudev Dutt all appeared in Chattagram. Haridas Thakur appeared in Budan. The village of Ekachakra is in the Radhadesh district of Bengal. The Supreme Lord Sri Nityananda made his appearance there. Lord Nityananda is factually the Supreme Father of all living entities. But to show mercy upon Harai Pandit, a Brahmin and pure devotee, he took birth as his son. Lord Nityananda is an ocean of mercy, the shelter of all Vaishnav devotees, and the giver of devotion. He appeared in the district of Radhadesh. When the lands on the banks of Mother Ganga are all places of pilgrimage, why did the Vaishnava devotees appear in impious lands? So we hear about some devotees appearing in the other sections of Bengal, which today would be considered Bangladesh. Some of them appearing in Muslim families, etc. So we hear like, why? Why? Chaitanya himself descended on the banks of Mother Ganga, so why did his eternal associates appear in faraway places? In their travels, the Pandavas avoided countries devoid of the sound of the holy name of the Lord and the waters of Mother Ganga. Lord Krishna Chaitanya, being compassionate on the unfortunate souls born in those lands, arranged for the pure Vaishnava devotees to appear there. His own appearance was required to redeem the material world. In order to accomplish this, he arranged for his pure devotees to take birth in impious lands and impious families. Wherever and in whichever family the pure Vaishnava devotees appears, he is able to purify everyone there by his pure spiritual potency. The birthplace of a pure Vaishnava becomes a place of pilgrimage. Therefore, the Supreme Lord Chaitanya arranged that his associates take birth in many, many different places. Although they were all born in different places, they met as if by accident in Navadweep. This I love. We hear so many people have a strong adherence to what kind of family you were born in and where you were born and all of these things. And here, Sri Chaitanya Bhagavat is saying it doesn't matter. Not only doesn't it matter, but it also does matter. Because the basis of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is that he's inconceivable. Achintya Beda Abeda Tattva, right? So we're going to have simultaneously same and different. And so it's going to make sense and not make sense. So it matters and doesn't matter. It matters because when the Lord sees that there are so many different people in so many different places, he decides to sprinkle his mercy everywhere. So it matters because he places those Vaishnavas there to make those different places into places of pilgrimage, and those families into illustrious dynasties. And then it doesn't matter because wherever there is a Vaishnav, Sri Krishna says all of these designations don't matter. So it matters when Krishna wants to give his mercy. And it doesn't matter when Krishna wants to give his mercy. If it made sense, then perfect. And if it didn't make sense, then also perfect. Lord Chaitanya's birthplace was Navadweep. Hence, Navadweep was the meeting place of all the devotees. The glories of Navadweep cannot be compared to any other place in the world. Knowing of Lord Chaitanya's descent in Navadweep Providence made it a prosperous and flourishing town to receive the Lord. Who is capable of describing Navadweep's opulence? Hundreds of thousands crowded to bathe on the banks of the Ganga. By Goddess Saraswati's grace, the residents of Navadweep of all different ages were learned exponents of the scriptures. The people were proud of their material knowledge. Even young boys argued logic with senior scholars. Students came from different parts of the country to study in Navadweep, because in Navadweep they could get a high training and taste in scholastics. The number of students in Navadweep was incalculable, and the exact count of teachers was undetermined. This makes me kind of think of, we hear of this kind of burgeoning metropolis, right? The center of wherever they were. And what does this look like today? Because Mahaprabhu's coming, right? Mahaprabhu's advent is coming. Are we acting like it? So what does this all look like for us today? Every place has been made a place of pilgrimage, especially this dirty, grungy, grimy New York. Srila Prabhupada came and made it a glorious place of pilgrimage. Sri Gaurachandra himself came, placed his two lotus feet in the form of his deities, and has made this a place of pilgrimage. There are new Navadweeps all over the world. So are we acting like it? Because the climate is exactly the same. Everybody's arguing with everybody else. Children are somehow being competent enough to argue with the adults. Everybody's giving all of these answers, right? Nobody can really agree, but everyone needs Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Enter Advaita Acharya. Advaita Acharya promised, as we hear later on in this description of the advent of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he promised, he said, I will take on the task of bringing our Lord. looking at the condition of where he was, the planetary climate, spiritually, materially, all of the above. He was thinking, we need help. We need a help greater than any help that we've ever needed. We need the Supreme Person himself, and I will take on the task. And if I am not able to bring about the advent of our Lord, then I will manifest an original four-armed form. And with my chakra, I will do away with everyone. This is Advaita Chandra. Advaita Chandra, who is none other than that expansion of Sadashiva, Mahavishnu, all combined, all in one. This is our benefactorial moon, who decided to call the golden moon down to earth. You ever see children and they really, really want the moon? It's like we all have such a fascination with it. Who else could tie a string around the moon and pull it down to earth but Advaita Chandra? This is our Advaita Acharya, who decided that enough was enough. And the only thing that could cure the disease that he saw around him, materially, spiritually, was Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. A flood of love of God. Let's wipe the slate clean. And so, with a heart full of devotion and filled to the brim with compassion, overflowing, he fervently called out with prayers, bound up our Supreme Lord, and forcibly brought him to the earth. Forcibly, because the Lord says himself, wherever my devotees are calling out with love and devotion, I am dragged there as if by force. So who can force the Lord who is beyond all forces? It's the devotee. This is our Advaita Chandra. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is a golden moon. The lotus feet of Lord Nityananda are cooling like the shelter of 10 million full moons. But this Advaita Chandra, without him, what would we have had? The residents were content, blessed by the favorable glances of Rama, Lakshmi, the goddess of fortune, but they wasted their time spending money for sense pleasures and other worldly affairs. As they had grown prouder and more materialistic, the people's taste for devotional service to the Supreme Lord had decreased alarmingly, and the beginning of Kali Yuga had ushered in immoral activities. The only religious or devotional activities they knew were invocations to the demigods and demigoddesses, especially Durga Devi, and prayers for temporary material benedictions. Some arrogantly worshipped Manasa, the goddess of snakes, and others wasted huge amounts of wealth worshipping dolls. They squandered large sums on the marriages of their sons and daughters, and in this way they wasted their human life. Now one might think, because we'll hear later on about the wedding ceremony of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself, and there's a large sum spent on that wedding. So we might think, is it wrong to spend a large sum of money on the marriages of the people that we love? No. The problem comes in when you see a new culture forming, right? Where now you can kind of hear of it. And if you go to a wedding in India, one of the families, they'll start demanding gifts. But now it's not just sums of money that was given freely from the heart, overflowing on a joyous occasion. It's like we need the largest inch screen plasma television, and the toaster, and a motorcycle, and a scooter, and larger sums of money. But what is it for? We start to lose track of the focus of what was originally supposed to be the intent. The intent of this was to celebrate the joining of two families, to celebrate a new dynasty forming, to celebrate this wonderful bride and groom are often supposed to be like Lakshmi Narayan. So when we see it in that regard, then yes, this is a a joyous occasion worthy of devotion and worship. It just becomes like a trading of sorts. Then we start to lose the idea of what it was supposed to be originally. So when we hear about wasting sums of money, this is what I can only imagine was way worse than whatever I can imagine. Even the supposedly knowledgeable high priests, the Bhattacharyas, the Chakravartis, and Mishras, did not know the purpose of scriptures. Though they taught the scriptures, their activities were contrary to a scriptural injunction. So along with their students, they drowned in the deluge of iniquity. Nobody was engaged in explaining the imports of congregational chanting of Lord Krishna's holy name, the religion of Kali Yuga. They spent their time simply finding faults in others. Oh no, now that is definitely the climate that we can relate to. And so if we were ever thinking that it was somehow better 500 years ago, they are dealing with mostly the same things. These are material world side effects. So we have to read the terms and conditions really clearly before we take on these material world bodies, right? Before we think that this is such a great idea. We have spiritual world bodies and material world bodies. We think, you know what? I've been in a spiritual world situation for such a long time. I'm thinking maybe I should be worshipped. I've seen a lot of worship happen, and I'm thinking it should be redirected. Like, if we could just redirect some of the flow of traffic, just some of it, not all of it, and still God can still have his plan.
Yeah, it's like you want to be worshipped. Here's your deity form. You have to worship it. You have to feed it. It evacuates and does all kinds of things. Here you go, Hare Krishna.
Right. So when we think about it, like, I think I should take on this new. We have to read the fine print. Terms and conditions all apply. These are dealing with exactly the same things that we were dealing with. Simply engaged in finding faults with one another. This is us. This has become kind of the purpose of social media. And at some points, it used to be that social media was really, really good. During like Chandan Yatra festivals, you could get such amazing darshan from all over the world continuously for 21 days, and your heart would be filled with all the beautiful pastimes. And now I feel like we're really combating. We're working hard to combat it because it's insidious. It seeps in everywhere. And if we think it wasn't present within Vaishnav devotee communities, it always was. Always was. So we are dealing with the same Kali Yuga, but it feels so much more potent because we are lacking that strength. They had such a greater strength to combat all of this Kali Yuga material worldness. And we are dealing with that and more material worldness, but the influence is stronger because our strength is not as great. We need these Vaishnavas. We need the mercy of Advaita Chandra. Help! Help! We need the chanting of the holy name. The Vaishnav devotees of the Lord became distressed upon seeing the general population engrossed in material existence under the external energy of the Lord. They compassionately thought, how can all these living entities be liberated? They're completely mesmerized by the myth of sense pleasures. Although the people were requested to chant Sri Krishna's holy name by the devotees, they refused, and instead they foolishly busied themselves acquiring fruitless material knowledge. The elevated Vaishnav devotees continued their devotional activities by worshipping Krishna, taking bath in the Ganga, and discussing Krishna-conscious topics. The Vaishnavas became moved to benedict humanity and prayed that Lord Krishna would quickly shower his mercy upon them. This is the climate. This is our climate. This is our Adivas. This is our pre-Gaur Purnima festival. Coming together, relishing topics, discussing with one another, having realizations with one another, and gaining some support from those realizations. But are we relishing them and praying for others in a compassionate way, thinking, oh Lord, please protect the world and quickly spread your shower of mercy. Give your mercy to everyone. Or are we thinking, give your mercy to everyone, who is following my path exactly the same way I'm following it, and doing all the rules exactly the same way I'm doing it. And to the rest of them, they can go kick rocks, they're on their own. Here, the devotees of the Lord were indiscriminately saying, just spread your shower of mercy. Wherever, whenever, whoever they needed. Oh my Lord, even if it looks like they don't follow all the rules and regulations, it's okay. Please, my Lord, give your mercy. So I feel like one of the biggest things that we can do during this pre-festival period is to intensely pray for the Lord's shower of mercy. And then we can add in, especially on those who are not practicing the way I am, especially on those who seem like they are not practicing with the same enthusiasm. Why? Because they need it. They absolutely need Krishna's mercy then. And that helps me often combat even the feelings of envy. My Guru Maharaj said something really interesting about envy. He was saying envy and jealousy, it's easy to say, oh, this devotee is a wonderful cook, when you are the one who makes the garlands. Right? If you're not the one that cooks, it's easy to praise the other devotees. This devotee is the best cook, the best lecture giver, the best book distributor, when you're the one who makes the garlands. It's much more difficult to praise the garland maker when you also are the one who makes the garlands. So one thing he said, he was like, the greed, it strikes us when it's someone who does exactly the same thing we're doing. And so this prayer of, my Lord, please give your mercy, shower your mercy, I try to bring that in, especially for those who are practicing Vaishnav culture the same way I'm practicing Vaishnav culture. Oh, my Lord, spread your ocean of mercy, especially on those who are doing better than me, especially on those who speak better than me, who sing better than me, who cook better than me, better prajaris than me. Give your mercy. Why? Because it helps me preempt my envy, helps me redirect it, because it can really sneak in there. And when I see myself thinking, oh, why does that person, they're just saying the same thing that I said 5 minutes ago, and I probably said it better, and yet they're watching those videos more. In those moments where I try to, wait, bring it back. Oh, my Lord, give them your mercy, and so me, because clearly at this point I need it. The disease, it's rearing, the sickness, I'm having a flare-up. There are people, when you deal with chronic illness, there are times when it subsides, and then there are flare-ups. We're all dealing with spiritual chronic illness. Our egos, this ahankar, this false ego, it will have flare-ups. And then there'll be times where we think, I'm doing pretty good. And then it has a flare-up. We have to be on guard and watch out for those flare-ups, and then take the medicine immediately. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has said, other than me, who is your friend? I came specifically to give you this medicine. All you have to do is take it. We have to be so careful and so on guard. So I try to preempt the envy. So this prayer, oh my Lord, give your mercy, shower your mercy, give all of your mercy. I try to do it in those times where I think, really? That person is doing that? And then I'm like, whoa, wait, no, wait. Oh my Lord, please give us all your mercy. Please protect us. So in those times where we see people who really need it, especially more in those times where we see people who we think don't need it, because that's where the envy and all the false ego starts to come in. What does that person need with it? They have all the... Wait, you're right. I'm not the judge. Sorry. So the times when to call out Krishna's mercy, they kind of become always, but for the people who really need it, for the people who we think don't need it, for the people who we have no idea whether they need it or not, for ourselves, for the people that we definitely when it comes and they prick us, we've been doing this service, and then they come and do a service, and then everybody's praising their service, and they haven't been praising the service that we've been doing steadily for 25 years. Wait, let's pray for Krishna's mercy. Let's pray for Mahaprabhu's shower of mercy, because the shower won't discriminate. What I love about Krishna, once again, with all of this lecture, right, with Manasa Seva, all of these things, is that the shower does not discriminate. And when that shower comes down, it, as Krishna says, why should we worship Indra? He pours water on the earth as well as the land, as well as the sea. I don't see the sea worshiping Indra. Mahaprabhu is like this cloud. Why worship Mahaprabhu? Because he is pouring an ocean of mercy on those who need it, as well as those who don't, or those who shouldn't get it. There's no discrimination there. So that same disqualification that Sri Krishna speaks about when he talks to his father, saying, why should we worship Indra? Rain is coming everywhere. This gives us greater reason to worship Mahaprabhu. This inundating cloud of Krishna prema is indiscriminately flowing everywhere. So when we pray for the mercy to shower on others, it is simultaneously coming to shower upon us. Know that for sure. Works both ways, which I have often heard, especially from my mother, that what you pray for others often boomerangs back upon you, which means we should be really careful.
Achyuta Gopi, does the curse work the same way? If you're cursing a devotee, does it affect you or envy? Yeah. Okay.
That's the problem. Especially now. All of our spiritual acharyas have said that blessings and curses also work with a boomerang effect if you curse the person. And what they say is, often we see this also in the case of like Durvasa Muni, right? He sends out a curse. The curse cannot reach the desired effect, and then it doubles back around and chases him with double speed, all the way until he has to seek the shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So yeah, those curses work the same way. We have to be really careful as Vaishnavas. We don't realize the incredible potency that we carry, coming from the chanting of this holy name. My mother always said, you have the ability to bless or curse. Always use it carefully. And then she'd always put over. And moreover, you should always bless the person. But she was always giving these, nuggets and jewels of advice when I was in the most uncomfortable place. It's always when I'm dealing with it. And she's like, now, you always have I'm like, I get it, the ability to bless or curse, choose carefully. And then, it's like taking the fire. What can I do now? We can pray. We can take that fire and pray for ourselves and each other, because we need it. We are all souls. So what is this climate? This climate is one of prayer. Deep prayer. Calling for the mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, because in just a few days, we are promised to see the answer to our prayers. The devotees in Mahaprabhu's time, they were praying for years and years. Advaita Acharya was praying. Just having to have faith and hope that Mahaprabhu would appear. Here, it's just a matter of a few days. So let's take up these few days from now until Gaur Purnima and pray for an inundating cloud that sweeps us all away with Krishna Prema, with the unfathomable, most valuable mercy of Sri Krishna and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, because he's waiting. He's so eager and ready to give it. We just have to stand there with arms outstretched, palms up, like make sure you palms up so that you can catch it. And we just have to stand in the way of the shower. If we can just find a way to stand in the rain this time, then we'll be good. But one of the most surefire ways to do it is to pray for other people. Thank you so much. Now we have to open it up for questions, which I'm glad we had some questions in between also.
Devotees, come on now. I know you have questions. Andrea, go ahead.
Hi, Krishna, Achyuta Gopi Devi. Thank you as always for your class. I just had an appreciation of the fact that once you started talking about praying for others and the shower of mercy, that's when the sunlight started coming in, and it kept highlighting like your tilak, and then it was just like, it felt like the Lord was participating. He was just like giving special effects to what you were saying. And then when you started like raising your hands and you're like, let's catch it. I don't know if you could see in the video that the sun was on your hands. So I don't know. I'm like a little kid, so that just made me smile. Thank you.
I would also like to thank Govinda for the divine theatrics. Thank you so much.
Hare Krishna, Achyuta Gopi. Thank you so much for class. There's so many things I could comment on, but what Ananda Vihari was saying about the curses coming back immediately brought me back to being in grade school. I'm rubber, you're glue. Whatever I say bounces off me and sticks to you. This is like, it's a transcendental that. But when you were describing Lord Chaitanya's day earlier, I was just reading Gita 1716 about the austerities of the body include, the honoring of one's parents. And there's Lord Chaitanya, like honoring his mother in such a wonderful way as he did, not to move. And I've been this is, in this time of COVID, it's been so much about my life, it's about protecting my mother from this thing. So many older people are so vulnerable. So it just really struck me that Lord Chaitanya just always so much like protected his mother. It was there for his mother and such a beautiful, beautiful example for us. So thank you so much for class.
Thank you. And yes, what a really sweet one. Definitely. He was he tried to make sure that his mother was cared for always. And even after he takes sannyas, he's constantly sending people. No, you go to Navadweep, stay near your mother, make sure she's okay. He would make sure, Advaita Acharya would also make sure. They were all making sure that Sachimata was okay and still protected. So yeah, it's such a wonderful realization of how wonderfully normal Mahaprabhu's day is. So it's almost like it's normal. But in looking at this wonderful, munificent, most magnificent manifestation of the Supreme Lord that no one's ever seen before, it's just normal. Does the same sweet things. Like, wonderful.
I was thinking, my mind was getting envious when I was hearing that Lord Chaitanya, he takes naps. He does his service in the mind. Seriously? And so what do we do when our crazy mind feels envious? I liked your point, how we redirect and pushing everybody in the shower. I really like that one. I just wanted to appreciate that emphasis that you made on helping others and praying for others, especially when they're doing the same thing as us, to preempt. I like the preemptive strike of appreciation. So thank you very much for that. I really need that. I have that. To Lord Chaitanya, towards Lord Chaitanya.
I mean, I find that, this envy also doesn't discriminate. Everybody, anybody, anything, everybody at all times, it's I have found myself, everybody always thinks somebody else has an easier life. Somewhere it's like, oh, babies have such an easy life. And then when you're a baby, you're not even actively conscious. You're not. So, but everybody has this idea that somebody else has it better. Somebody else has it easier. Somebody else has this. Somebody else has that. Then you get into it, and it's into a situation like, animals have it so easy. They don't have to have responsibilities or day jobs. They just go about, they do their thing. And it's so subtle, but this is that envy. Nobody has it easy in the material world. It's the material world. And the wonderful thing is, in the spiritual world, the minute somebody's thinking, look at that animal, look at how they're serving, it brings up almost transcendental competition. I wish I could serve my Krishna this way, which just increases people's eagerness to serve and an appreciation for someone else, instead of now thinking Krishna is limited to only accepting that service or my service and not the both of them. In the spiritual world, everyone engages in this transcendental competition to see, oh, I just want to please Krishna more, but Krishna can accept your service, my service, their service, that service, and he's still not satisfied. Still has room specifically for our service. So this transcendental competition where there are no winners and there is only ever increasing happiness is such a different competition than that cutthroat dog eat dog, I'm gonna succeed over you at all costs. Even when we see cowherd boys thinking, I'll be the first to touch Krishna. No, I will. No, I will. Everyone is running to touch Krishna, but at the same time, everybody's also thinking, but I was the first to touch Krishna. Krishna's making it so everyone thinks they were the first. Everyone thinks they won. Everyone thinks Krishna was only looking at me. When they all sit down to eat, everyone's thinking, oh, Krishna was just sharing with me. Even when Mahaprabhu was here, every kirtan, everyone thought Mahaprabhu was just singing in my kirtan. Mahaprabhu was just looking at me. Redirecting this envy, if we can do it consistently, it brings out such a sweeter, magnificent glory of the pastimes of Krishna, of how amazing our Krishna is, that he knows what's there in the heart. And he thinks, no problem. I will make a situation where everyone will become pleased. In fact, in one of the purports to Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, during the story of Shakshi Gopal, Srila Prabhupada says that Krishna must, when it comes into certain situations where there are quarrels and different things that happen, says Krishna must make a situation whereby everyone is pleased. And I have taken that for so many prayers. Oh my Lord, I can't satisfy or equalize this entire situation, but you can. You can make a situation where everyone is pleased with the outcome. We think about Duryodhana and Arjuna asking Krishna for assistance during a battle of Kurukshetra. Krishna says, you can have my army or you can have me. It's a situation where everyone is actually pleased, even when they don't get the best thing, because Duryodhana was happy. No problem. I didn't want an unarmed Krishna anyway. You can have him. What's he going to do? He doesn't have weapons. I've got an entire army. He got the lesser thing, but was fully pleased with the result. This is Krishna. So we think there are so many people doing horrible things. I want to pray for Krishna to make a situation where everyone is pleased. Yes. That's the test of how close we were becoming to being a Vaishnav. When we start realizing that underneath the layers and layers and layers of conditioning that has become a transcendental villain story for whatever villain that we're looking at, there's a soul with a Paramatma journeying just the same way we are. Trying to wonder, this soul is wondering, have I gone too far? Am I too far for my master to recognize me? Underneath all of the conditioning lies a soul just like us, afraid just like we are, in anxiety just like we are, grappling with the six senses which include the mind just like we are. When we can look at the most atrocious incidents and somehow find a way to connect it to Krishna, when we can look at the good things and find a way to connect it to Krishna, it's a true testament to how close we are to becoming Vaishnavas, somehow or other. And that's what I want. even if I think, you know what, a nap would be really good, then at least before I take that nap, let me focus, let me meditate, let me bring my mind to that place where even Mahaprabhu says, you know what, let me take a nap. And our Vaishnavacharyas have written wonderful poetry just about the Lord's taking a nap. If we can think, all of the cowherd boys, they would all take naps with Krishna during midday. Let me bring my mind to somehow or other, even in my dreams, become part of this pastime. It's all I want. Then even naps become spiritualized. Naps become devotional service.
Okay, do we have any further comments? The temple room, the deities are opening, right?
Aye.
Okay. Yeah, we can go on if we have. Susan, do you have a comment or a question? And we see your beautiful smile. We know. We see you. We're watching you.
Just so appreciative of all you're offering. I'm just so inspired. Thank you.
I am one of the many, because like I said, every day that I thought about this lecture, I thought about a different one. And finally, so one of the many pastimes that I was thinking of was Mahaprabhu's taking darshan of Lord Jagannath. And this woman, determined, comes and she pushes her way through a crowd, trying as only small little old Indian ladies can do. They have the sharpest elbows in all of creation, by the way. You've never been, it's an experience. So she comes, she's eagerling, and Mahaprabhu is standing near the Garuda Stamba, the back of the temple room. And this woman somehow finds him and climbs up on his shoulders. Mahaprabhu's personal servant is horrified. What are you doing? And he goes to try and remove her with some other devotees. Mahaprabhu says, no. Don't disturb her. If only I had this kind of eagerness and determination. And I was kind of thinking about that because they said the deities are opening. You could hear it. Bells were ringing. Conch shells were blowing. Govindam prayers were being chanted. And I was waiting. And then, no. And so I was thinking about how often, and in thinking about that lecture, I wanted to talk about how often I find myself taking darshan for granted. You know, I look, I see, my mind wanders, I bring it back, wanders again, turn away. Oh, the deities are there, but here I am. I'm doing something. It's more important. And now I wanted to bring my mind back to, wait, but that eagerness, having that one devotee, she's going to do anything in order to see God. And God's going to let her do anything in order to see him. And then praise her determination. So I was kind of meditating on this pastime. So I thought it was really interesting how it would play out modernly and virtually. You can't make this up. But I'm hoping that if I talk long enough, someone will have mercy on us and direct a camera over to the deities.
Yeah, it didn't happen. But, you know, we are staying in the shower. We take our clothes on, clothes of envy, fears, anxiety. We take that all off, stand in the shower like Achyuta Gopi Prabhu is encouraging us. And we're good. We'll be good. Like Bhima Prabhu was saying yesterday, follow the Yoga Maya, watch out for Mahamaya, and you'll be okay. So you'll be okay. Achyuta Gopi Devi Dasi Prabhu Ki Jai, Grantarat Shrimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai, Ekadasi Sirius Ki Jai, devotees who are keeping their cameras on, Ki Jai. Thank you very much. See you all back again tomorrow. Hare Krishna. Thank you for your beautiful smiles. Hari Bol. Hare Krishna.